I don't tell people where I spent that winter anymore. If someone brings up abandoned mansions or haunted places, I just leave the conversation. They think it's because I got scared by an old building. They're wrong. It wasn't the house I was afraid of. It was the people who never wanted anyone to leave it. About 4 years ago, I took temporary work for a private property management company. The pay was unusually good because most of the properties were isolated vacation estates that owners rarely visited. The company mostly needed someone to check utilities, prevent frozen pipes, document storm damage, and report trespassers. One property stood out immediately. It sat miles away from the nearest paved road behind locked steel gates. The driveway alone took nearly 15 minutes to drive. The mansion wasn't abandoned exactly. It was fully furnished. Electricity worked, heat worked. The refrigerators were stocked with bottled water. Fresh propane tanks had been delivered recently. But according to the paperwork, no owner had visited in almost 3 years. My assignment was simple. Stay there for 5 nights while contractors repaired underground water lines. I would unlock the property each morning, let them work, then lock everything again at sunset. Easy money. The contractors were local. Every afternoon they packed their trucks before dark. The foreman said something strange on the first day. "You staying here tonight?" "Yeah." He stared at the mansion for a second. I'd sleep with the doors locked. I laughed. He didn't. Then they drove away. The mansion felt enormous after sunset. Every room echoed. The heating system clicked constantly. Wind pushed against old windows. Nothing unusual. Just a huge, empty building. The first night passed quietly. The second night didn't. Around 11, I heard an engine somewhere outside. Not close. Far enough away that I couldn't see headlights. It idled for nearly 20 minutes, then shut off. I checked every exterior camera. Nothing. No vehicles. No movement. I figured someone had stopped on the forest road. The third morning, I found fresh tire tracks. Not mine. They stopped about 200 yards from the mansion. Then turned around. Nobody had approached the house. That bothered me more than if they had. Someone came all the way out there, just to look. That afternoon I mentioned it to the contractors. The youngest guy immediately stopped smiling. The foreman quietly asked where I'd seen them. I pointed toward the entrance road. He exchanged looks with another worker. Then he changed the subject. Nobody answered my questions. That night the engine came back. Same place, same distance, idle, silence, leave. This time I grabbed binoculars and went upstairs. Through a gap in the trees I barely made out an old pickup. No lights, couldn't see plates, couldn't see who was inside. Just a dark shape, watching. I reported it to my supervisor. He sounded annoyed. Probably hunters. On private land, they wander. They've come 2 nights in a row. Just stay inside. That was it. The 4th day I started noticing small things. The garage side door wasn't fully latched. I knew I had locked it. One basement light had been switched on. A folding chair had been moved into a hallway. Nothing stolen, nothing broken, just different. I convinced myself I had simply forgotten. Late that evening, the power went out. The backup generator started automatically. Half the mansion lit back up, half stayed dark. The contractors had warned me the repair work might interrupt electricity, so I wasn't too worried. Until I heard footsteps upstairs. Not loud. Just slow. 3 steps, pause, 3 more. I froze. Maybe old pipes, maybe the generator vibrating. Then I heard something unmistakable. A toilet flushed. The sound echoed through the entire house. I grabbed the flashlight and called out, "Hello?" Nothing. I checked every room. Nobody. The upstairs bathroom was empty. But the toilet tank was still refilling. Someone had flushed it less than a minute earlier. I locked myself inside the office and called 911. Deputies arrived almost 40 minutes later. They searched everything. Nothing. One deputy asked if anyone besides me had keys. Not that I know of. He nodded without looking convinced. Before leaving, he told me something that kept bothering me. There are more tire tracks now. What do you mean? They weren't just at the entrance. My stomach dropped. He pointed toward the back lawn. They drove around the property. The company offered to move me to a hotel, but they also reminded me finishing the assignment meant a completion bonus worth almost a month's rent. I was 24. I needed the money. I stayed. Big mistake. I decided to keep every exterior light on. Around midnight, the lights all shut off. Not because power failed, because someone had flipped the main outdoor breaker. I watched it happen through the security cameras. The screen flickered. Then darkness. The camera nearest the electrical shed caught only one thing. A gloved hand. Nothing else. I didn't go outside. I locked every deadbolt. I stayed upstairs with the lights off. For nearly an hour, nothing happened. Then I heard vehicles. More than one. Engines. Doors closing. Quiet voices. At least 4 people. Maybe more. They weren't trying to hide anymore. They believed nobody could see them. I crawled toward the upstairs window. Flashlights moved across the lawn. One person stood near the detached garage. Another walked toward the back entrance. One disappeared into the tree line. They were surrounding the house. My phone suddenly vibrated. Unknown number. I answered without speaking. A man's voice said one sentence. "We know you're alone." The call disconnected. Every camera on my monitor went black. One by one, I called 911 again. The dispatcher kept me talking while deputies headed out. The nearest unit was still almost 30 minutes away. The longest 30 minutes of my life. Someone tested every door, not pounding, just trying handles, checking locks patiently, like they had all night. Glass rattled downstairs. Then silence, then another door, another window, never rushing, never speaking. They wanted me scared. Finally, I heard sirens, not close. Still miles away. The engines outside started immediately. Vehicles accelerated into the darkness. By the time deputies reached the mansion, they were gone. Again. I assumed that was the end. It wasn't. One deputy searched the basement more carefully than the others. He found a narrow steel door behind old storage shelves. It wasn't hidden well, just forgotten. Inside was a concrete room. No windows, a folding table, several plastic chairs, empty food wrappers, recent cigarette butts, battery packs, chargers, fresh footprints. Someone had been using that room regularly, not years ago, recently. The deputies believed a criminal crew had been meeting there because nobody ever visited the property. That explained why they kept watching the mansion. Then I asked something that made everyone go quiet. If they've been using this place, I looked around the room. Why didn't they leave before I arrived? Nobody answered. 2 weeks later, I received a copy of the official incident report. Most of it matched what I'd already been told, except for one paragraph. It wasn't highlighted. It wasn't important to the investigation, just a note from the evidence technician. While processing fingerprints inside the hidden basement room, investigators found dozens of entries written inside an old maintenance notebook. Each page listed dates, vehicle descriptions, times, weather conditions, license plate numbers, and short notes. Every entry described people arriving at the mansion: contractors, delivery drivers, inspectors, electricians, maintenance workers, everyone who had ever been sent there. The notebook covered almost 6 years. The final page had only one unfinished entry. It was dated the week I stayed there. It listed the make and model of my truck, then my license plate, then one sentence: lives alone, worth waiting for. The first thing that made me want to leave wasn't the mansion. It was the blueprint. Every room had measurements except for one blank rectangle in the middle of the house. No label, no doorway, just empty space surrounded by walls that shouldn't have fit together. I'm an architecture student, and last fall, I took a freelance job documenting an isolated mansion before it was demolished. The estate had been abandoned for years after the owner died, and a developer wanted a complete digital floor plan before tearing it down. The property sat at the end of a long gravel road surrounded by dense woods. There were no neighbors, no cell service, and no sounds except the wind. The caretaker handed me the keys and said, "If something about the house doesn't make sense, don't assume the blueprints are right." Then he drove away. Inside, the mansion looked frozen in time. Furniture was covered in dust, books still lined the shelves, and family photos remained on the walls. It felt like everyone had walked out one afternoon and never returned. As I started measuring rooms, everything matched the original plans perfectly, until I reached the second floor. According to the blueprint, one hallway should have been 36 feet long. My laser measure read 42. I checked it 3 times. The measurement never changed. Every nearby room matched the plans, yet somehow the house contained 6 extra feet that officially didn't exist. The next morning, I noticed a section of wall with newer paint than the rest. It looked ordinary, but when I knocked on it, one part sounded hollow. Curious, I searched the basement and found old plumbing and electrical lines running beneath the missing section. Someone had spent a fortune rerouting everything to erase part of the house. Later, I stopped at a diner in the nearest town. When I mentioned where I was working, the waitress went quiet. "My grandfather used to deliver groceries there," she said. What was strange about it? They always ordered enough food for 12 people. Weren't there only 3 owners? She nodded. That's why he never liked going there. Back at the mansion, I inspected the hollow wall again. Hidden inside a nearby closet was a small brass screw covered with layers of paint. When I turned it, I heard a click. The wall slowly slid open. Behind it was a narrow hallway leading to a room that wasn't shown on any blueprint. It wasn't a secret bedroom or a basement prison. It was an office. Shelves held dozens of binders organized by year. Inside were records of everyone who had ever worked on the estate. Electricians, plumbers, landscapers, delivery drivers, inspectors. Each file included names, vehicle information, home addresses, and handwritten notes. Some simply said, "completed work." Others read, "asked unnecessary questions." Then I found one category that appeared again and again. Very observant. Another cabinet looked much newer. Inside were recent folders. One was dated only a few weeks before I arrived. I opened it. The first photograph showed the front gate. The second showed my truck pulling into the driveway. The third showed me unloading my equipment. The next picture had been taken through a second-floor window while I measured the hallway. Another showed me eating lunch outside. Someone had been watching me from the moment I arrived. My hands started shaking. I quickly photographed every document I could. Then I heard something. A door closed somewhere beyond the hidden room, not inside the office, farther back, as if another passage existed behind the walls. Footsteps followed, slow, calm, walking away. I didn't wait to find out who was there. I grabbed my backpack, ran through the hidden hallway, and sprinted outside. The front door was standing open. I knew I had locked it. Fresh boot prints crossed the porch. Only one person, whoever had been watching me, knew I'd found the room. I drove straight to the sheriff's office. Detectives searched the mansion with me that afternoon. The hidden room was still there. The old binders were still on the shelves, but the modern cabinet was empty. Every recent folder, including the one with my photographs, had disappeared. The investigation went nowhere. Months later, the mansion was demolished. Nothing criminal was ever proven. I tried to forget about it. Almost a year later, I accepted another surveying job in another state. During lunch, an older worker walked past me, stopped, and stared. "I know your face," he said. "I don't think we've met." He frowned. "No, I saw you in a file once." Before I could ask what he meant, someone called him over the radio. He walked away. His supervisor later told me the man had quit that afternoon. When I asked for his name, the company said no employee matching that description had ever worked there. I still have the photographs I took inside the hidden office. A few months ago, while looking through them again, I noticed something I swear wasn't there before. One image showed the file they had made about me. Across the top of the page, written in black ink, were 4 words I never noticed the day I took the picture. Observant. Continue monitoring. I haven't accepted another job involving isolated properties since.